5 wealthy explorers descended into the ocean's crushing darkness, chasing a dream few dared attempt. They were diving in something that was truly a ticking time bomb. Hours later, they met their terrifying end somewhere near the Titanic's eternal resting place. Their vessel was crushed with unimaginable force. The implosion happened in mere milliseconds, leaving absolutely no chance to survive. What appeared to be a tragic accident was actually something far more sinister, a mousetrap designed specifically for billionaires. On the morning of June 18, 2023, 5 men with dreams, ambitions, and $250,000 tickets boarded the submersible Titan. The vessel was smaller than a minivan, eerily claustrophobic with no seats and only a single push-button toilet. It was bolted shut from the outside by the crew. Their audacious goal: descend nearly 12,500 feet beneath the icy North Atlantic to witness the decaying remains of the legendary Titanic. What they couldn't possibly know was that they weren't just diving into history, they were diving headlong into doom itself. Among the ill-fated crew was Stockton Rush, CEO of OceanGate and the arrogant brain behind the submersible. He was gambling his own life on an experimental design he swore was safe. Hamish Harding, a British billionaire and seasoned adventurer, had already flown to space aboard Blue Origin's rocket. Paul-Henri Nargeolet, a former French Navy commander nicknamed Mr. Titanic, had completed dozens of previous dives to the wreck. The final passengers were Shahzada Dawood, a Pakistani-British businessman, and his 19-year-old son Suleiman, who was reportedly terrified but joined to bond with his father. They launched from their mothership, the Polar Prince, off the rugged coast of Newfoundland, Canada. The dive began normally, with Titan commencing its slow, deliberate descent into the crushing blackness of the deep. They were tethered only by occasional text messages to the surface. Then, precisely 1 hour and 45 minutes into their journey, all communication suddenly ceased. The sub had vanished completely. For days, the world watched in agonizing suspense, gripped by a cruel countdown as experts estimated only 96 hours of oxygen remained. Frantic international search teams scrambled, deploying sophisticated sonar buoys, aircraft, and advanced underwater drones. What they didn't know was that it was already too late. On June 22, global hope instantly transformed into unspeakable horror. Debris was found near the Titanic wreck site, twisted, mangled pieces of Titan's titanium and carbon fiber hull. The vessel had catastrophically imploded just a few hundred meters from its destination. The pressure at that crushing depth meant the craft was obliterated in less than 20 milliseconds, faster than the human brain could register a thought. Before starting the video, please, it will take 1 second. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much. OceanGate was born from bold, almost audacious ambition to revolutionize deep-sea exploration. Founded in 2009 by Stockton Rush and Guillermo Sonline, the company was built with the singular goal of pushing underwater technology boundaries without limits. Stockton Rush was driven by big dreams and disturbing ideas. He didn't just want to create a submersible, he wanted to transform deep-sea exploration entirely. He was willing to risk everything to achieve the goal, guided by one chilling mantra that would define his approach: safety is pure waste. Rush's philosophy wasn't just a casual comment, it became the defining characteristic of OceanGate's operations. He didn't see industry regulations or established safety standards as crucial guidelines to follow. Instead, he contemptuously viewed them as archaic obstacles to be aggressively overcome. In a world where deep-sea submersibles typically undergo decades of rigorous testing and certification from renowned marine safety agencies, Rush made a fatal choice. OceanGate would deliberately avoid classification from any reputable marine safety agency. This dangerous lack of external oversight would prove to be the critical flaw that sealed Titan's fate. As OceanGate designed the Titan, the company desperately needed attention and publicity. There was no better way to capture the world's imagination than hitching their fate to the Titanic, history's most famous and tragic shipwreck. Rush understood the magnetic allure of the Titanic more than just a sunken ship. It was a profound symbol of human ambition, catastrophic failure, and enduring tragedy. The 1912 disaster, claiming over 1,500 lives, remains one of the most haunting stories of the 20th century. Its wreck, rediscovered in 1985, lay at an unimaginable depth of 12,500 feet. For Stockton Rush, the Titanic was the perfect macabre marketing tool. He knew trips to the wreck site would appeal to wealthy thrill-seekers eager to literally touch history and gaze upon legendary remains. So he pitched exclusive submersible dives to the Titanic wreck, selling tickets for an astounding $250,000 each. It was a clever but morally questionable business move, effectively turning the profound tragedy of the Titanic into a luxury experience for those wealthy enough to afford such a perilous journey. Rush was ready to cash in on the public's morbid obsession with the shipwreck. The Titan was not a traditional submersible, it was a radical, untested departure from anything used before. Unlike other deep-sea vessels that were meticulously tested and built according to decades of international standards, the Titan was experimental. It was crafted with materials like carbon fiber and titanium rather than proven thick steel. The result was a submersible design that would tragically lead directly to the catastrophe. In his relentless pursuit of history and adventure, Stockton Rush ignored one simple truth: some boundaries exist for very good reasons. OceanGate's history was littered with ignored red flags and terrifying close calls that foreshadowed the ultimate disaster. Before the ill-fated Titan, OceanGate had embarked on perilous deep-sea exploration with its first submersible, Cyclops 1. This earlier vehicle was designed for shallower depths but represented a significant step in their self-proclaimed mission to innovate underwater exploration. However, even the company's early history was marred by alarming incidents and near disasters, clearly highlighting a dangerous pattern of recklessness that would eventually culminate in the Titan catastrophe. One of the most significant early ventures came in 2016 when OceanGate set its sights on the Andrea Doria wreck, dubbed the Mount Everest of diving. The Andrea Doria lies off Massachusetts at 240 feet depth, making it one of the most challenging wrecks to explore. The ship had claimed 52 lives when it sank in 1956. OceanGate launched a dive using Cyclops 1, aggressively advertising the mission as a success. However, the grim reality revealed by a 2023 Vanity Fair article was far darker. Technical failures sent the expedition into chaos, with life-threatening malfunctions causing panic as the crew struggled to control the compromised vehicle. The most troubling detail from the Andrea Doria near catastrophe was the shocking lack of preparedness for technical issues. The submersible's experimental design and operational limitations became horrifyingly apparent, with serious doubts about the crew's ability to handle escalating complications. Yet despite this terrifying close call, OceanGate quickly spun the event as a resounding success. CEO Stockton Rush continued aggressively promoting the company's deep-sea expertise to media, utterly devoid of critical self-reflection. These early warning signs screamed danger to those involved, but Rush and his team brazenly brushed them off as inevitable risks in innovation. The alarm bells weren't just ringing, they were screaming. In 2018, one of the most damning warnings came from David Lockridge, OceanGate's Director of Marine Operations. Lockridge discovered that the carbon fiber hull hadn't been adequately tested for intense deep-sea pressures. He flagged that the viewport was only certified for depths up to 1,300 meters, far short of the Titanic's 3,800-meter depth. He noted the alarming lack of full-scale testing on the hull, calling it a disaster waiting to happen. When he raised these critical issues, the response was swift and brutal. He was fired immediately. Lockridge wasn't alone in his concerns. Several outside submersible experts refused to partner with OceanGate or walked away from the project entirely. In 2018, a formidable group of industry leaders, including the prestigious Marine Technology Society, wrote a scathing letter directly warning Stockton Rush against avoiding third-party certification. The Titan's radical carbon fiber and titanium hybrid design was fundamentally untested in deep-sea conditions. Experts feared it might fail catastrophically under pressure, and they were chillingly right to worry. During earlier test dives, cracks and delamination had already started appearing on the Titan. Inside OceanGate, a suffocating culture of fear and relentless urgency dominated operations. Employees and pilots reportedly felt immense pressure to perform, meet impossible deadlines, and satisfy investor demands for perpetual progress. Questioning decisions was seen as disloyalty or insubordination. Speaking up might mean losing your job or being publicly blamed for costly delays. As one former employee grimly stated, safety wasn't just overlooked, it was actively discouraged. With each ignored warning and punished whistleblower, OceanGate drifted closer to tragedy. The Titan's fate wasn't sudden, it was a slow-burning collapse of caution. At first glance, the Titan looked like a symbol of audacious innovation, a sleek, modern submersible built to carry civilians into Earth's most hostile environment. But behind the glossy marketing and CEO's relentless ambition was a precarious web of untested technology, bold shortcuts, and fatal oversights. The very heart of Titan's design was its carbon fiber pressure hull, a revolutionary decision that set it dangerously apart from every other successful deep-sea vessel. Most proven submersibles rely on time-tested materials like titanium or thick steel, which have decades of data supporting their performance under crushing pressures. Carbon fiber, while lighter and cheaper, behaves fundamentally differently under repeated stress. It's strong in tension but not fail-safe under compression. Its layers can delaminate, peeling apart invisibly after stress cycles, fundamentally weakening the structure. OceanGate recklessly ignored numerous warnings that the hull could weaken invisibly with time, making each dive an unpredictable ticking time bomb. CEO Stockton Rush's "safety is pure waste" philosophy bled into every aspect of Titan's design. Instead of standard naval controls, the sub was piloted using a mere $30 Logitech game controller, a shocking compromise for such a critical system. Dangerous systems. The Titan bizarrely lacked a GPS system and had shockingly primitive navigation, relying on intermittent text messages sent through a Starlink-connected surface ship, a method prone to failure in the turbulent Atlantic. There were no external rescue systems, no automatic buoy deployment for lost contact, and no redundant backup life support systems. Most critically, the pressure vessel was never pressure tested to full Titanic depths under independent review, a cardinal sin in deep-sea engineering. Instead, OceanGate chose to monitor the hull in real time using acoustic sensors, essentially listening for crackling sounds as signs of failure. Red flags had appeared on several dives before the fatal one. Titan had inexplicably lost communication with the surface, forcing missions to be cut short and abandoning terrified passengers partway through their journey. In 2025, the mystery was finally solved when Wired magazine published a landmark investigation titled "The Titan Submersible Disaster Shocked the World." Written by journalist Mark Harris, this exposé wasn't speculation. It was based on internal emails, engineering logs, whistleblower interviews, and previously unreleased maintenance reports. It definitively revealed that Titan wasn't just flawed, it was catastrophically doomed by decisions that actively ignored desperate warnings. According to the Wired report, Titan's onboard acoustic monitoring system had picked up unusual, terrifying creaking and crackling sounds in previous dives long before the final one. This was irrefutable audio evidence of microfractures forming inside the carbon fiber hull. These ominous sounds were first detected as early as 2021 and grew progressively louder and more alarming in later expeditions. Yet they were tragically written off by OceanGate leadership as routine acoustic behavior at depth. Independent experts consulted by Wired stated unequivocally that this acoustic signature is almost universally considered a dire red flag for material fatigue. The Wired article revealed that warnings from within OceanGate were actively and ruthlessly suppressed. At least 3 engineers and contractors left the company between 2021 and 2023 after expressing grave concerns about Titan's structural safety. One lead design engineer submitted a formal proposal in 2022 urgently recommending a complete redesign of the pressure vessel after modeling long-term stress effects. That crucial document was ignored, shelved, and never discussed in official design meetings. Instead of pausing to address growing risks, OceanGate relentlessly pushed forward, driven by tight commercial timelines and mounting investor expectations at $250,000 per seat. The Wired report obtained fragments of Titan's final dive log. Just minutes before the submersible lost contact on June 18, 2023, passengers reported disturbing signs. One felt an odd vibration, another described a high-pitched sound like distant metal flexing. These were undeniable real-time signs of the sub's structural integrity rapidly deteriorating, its very material screaming its impending demise. But there was no protocol to abort the dive, no distress call was made. Moments later, in less time than it takes to blink, the pressure hull catastrophically collapsed. The internal environment at OceanGate was one of pervasive, dangerous denial. The most haunting moment in the investigation came from a 2023 internal email from a junior engineer. After reviewing sensor data, his subject line was a desperate cry, "This is terrible." Those 3 devastating words became the emotional core of the entire investigation, summing up the horrifying failure not just of engineering, but of ethics, leadership, and fundamental accountability. When Wired laid out its findings, the mystery surrounding Titan's implosion was finally, tragically solved. This wasn't a sudden, unforeseeable accident, it was a cascading, ignored crisis. The evidence had been screaming warnings in sensors, data, emails, and silenced voices. What makes the Titan tragedy so profoundly haunting isn't just the violent nature of the implosion, it's the painful truth that it didn't have to happen. This wasn't a natural disaster or unpredictable accident beyond human control. This was a man-made failure caused by unchecked hubris, devastating neglect, and a deliberate refusal to listen to reason. OceanGate had every opportunity to pause, reassess, redesign, or cancel the mission altogether. The warnings weren't hidden, they were loud, repeated, and came from credible experts and seasoned engineers. But instead of seeing concerns as chances to improve, OceanGate dismissed them as obstacles to innovation. Among those lost was 19-year-old Suleiman Dawood, whose story is perhaps the most heart-wrenching part of this tragedy. His relatives later revealed he was terrified of the dive and had expressed profound doubts beforehand. He had planned to back out but joined anyway to make his father, Shahzada Dawood, happy. When the Wired exposé came out in 2025, the public backlash was swift, furious, and global. Scientists, engineers, and deep-sea professionals who had tried for years to sound the alarm felt grimly vindicated but certainly not relieved. The revelations confirmed the implosion was entirely, tragically preventable. The fallout was inevitable, cascading lawsuits, intensifying criminal investigations, and a global debate over the future of deep-sea exploration and high-risk tourism. After the disaster, OceanGate quietly suspended all operations, scrubbing much of its online presence and avoiding press questions. But that silence only intensified public outrage. The company's shutdown didn't erase what happened, it left a gaping void filled with grief, lawsuits, and unrelenting scrutiny. Families of victims quickly filed searing lawsuits against OceanGate for wrongful death, gross negligence, and severe emotional distress, focusing on Stockton Rush's documented history of ignoring critical safety advice. Beyond the courtroom, the global reaction was immediate and unified. The deep-sea community, once quietly skeptical of OceanGate's approach, began calling for strict, sweeping reforms across the entire industry. Several influential industry groups proposed new mandatory certification standards demanding that all commercial submersibles undergo rigorous independent testing and receive third-party approval, safeguards OceanGate had deliberately avoided. There was also a noticeable chill in public support for adventurous tech startups promising exclusive, unregulated experiences. People began questioning how far innovation should go without crucial oversight and robust regulation. The Titan disaster didn't just affect one company or 5 lives. It sparked a worldwide conversation about the ethics of exploration, the dangers of treating high-risk travel like luxury tourism, and the paramount importance of prioritizing human lives over profit or progress. Experts now state that Titan will be remembered as a grim, pivotal turning point in deep-sea exploration. It exposed gaping cracks in a system that allowed a risky, untested vessel to carry civilians into the ocean's crushing depths. Universities and engineering schools are already including the Titan incident in coursework as a stark example of what happens when risk management is ignored. In the end, the Titan wasn't just a failed mission but a deafening warning that came tragically too late. OceanGate's story is now an indelible cautionary tale about what happens when ego catastrophically overrules expertise and profit criminally outweighs caution. The Titan didn't fail because the ocean was unforgiving, it failed because those responsible for its safety believed fundamental rules didn't apply to them. Stockton Rush ultimately paid for his hubris with his life, leaving us with one haunting, unshakable question echoing from the abyss: what if they had simply listened?